Okay, I'm gonna sit next to you.
Okay.
But
Well, it's a very tiny couch. I warn you in advance.
okay, speaking.
Okay.
What were you gonna say?
So, I think the fog of AI has cleared a little bit. Where I remember when GPT-3 first dropped, people were unclear about how sharp of an exponential we were on, and also like what were the timelines for total transformation of society. You're gonna want to pause for a sec.
Okay, I restarted it. I didn't figure out how to actually pause it.
Okay, you
Did
should.
you need an option to pause?
I think it
Okay,
does.
so
Mhm.
well, whatever. Doesn't
Test
matter.
things.
Yeah.
Is it going right now?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, what I was saying is like, yeah, when GPT-3 first dropped, people were unclear what type of exponential we were on, how sharp it was, etc. And so I think for most people who are paying attention, the most intense like whiteout blizzard happened in their forecasting, where they were like, I have no clue, I can't even forecast 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And I think like that fog of war has like mostly cleared, and we have some like pretty good intuitive understandings of like what this might look like. And so I'm doing a series of talks on like possible economic futures, the ramifications, where the point is to get people in a mindset of like, this is what the future might play out, like develop key insights of like, okay, for example, one type of key insight is what are the key metrics to measure to let us know which future we're in.
Yeah.
Like which inflection points do I need to know that once this number goes this way, we're like 50% chance we're in this future, not this future, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like a talk series where we talk about that future, then people go into small groups, and then we all come back as a big group to sort of sort out the things. I can give you an example, by the way, of like what I mean by the fog of war has cleared.
What do you hope to accomplish by group discussion, though?
Novel insight generation and cultivation and curation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
One of the things
Wait,
that
do you
I
know Clovis?
yes,
Okay.
he's doing the first one with me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good because there's a high overlap. He really also likes stuff like that.
Yes. Clovis, it will be me and Clovis for the first one. Me and Leah, which is a friend who runs a PE fund, and me and Danielle Strockman, who is the founder of the Teal Fellowship and 1517 Fund, all here. And I'm looking for one more, so I have no clue. I want to give you the fog of war clear.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll find it fascinating, because it's something that once I thought about it, I was like, oh shoot, no one is talking about this enough. Based off of everything we can tell right now, and just like simple laws of how long it takes to start up a factory, it's looking like there will probably be a 20-year lag between when all human cognitive labor is automated and all human physical labor is automated, with cognitive labor going first and physical labor taking like 20 years to catch up.
Do you even envision a future in which cognitive labor is automated? Because I kind of don't see it yet.
I think for the most part it will be automated.
I definitely see. I think it's a possibility, but not with current tooling and
No.
the current generation. Not even in the foreseeable future do I think there will be a generation where human cognitive labor is automated. But like I think it's like conceptually possible, and probably like I think the generations that I can see is probably only like 2 or 3 years in the future. So
Yeah.
not in the next 2 or 3 years, but maybe in the next 5 to 10 possibly. But
My guesstimate is somewhere in the next 7 to more like 20 years, we will see essentially the current version of the professional managerial class. The way that this is often thought about is if your job only requires a computer, video, and a mouse, you're gone 20 years from now. And it's like, to be fair, like that one I can see very clearly with just like current Claude computer dynamics ramping up faster and faster, or tool use. So like MCP servers plus Claude being able to use your laptop. It's like, give that 5 years of continuous refinement of millions of people using that, gone, And it's like, the funny thing is, our current class structure, those people are like the top 5 to 10% in terms of economics. And to see those people, they're going to fall really dramatically, where plumbers and tradespeople are going to rise to be what they used to be. And that's going to, like, the political ramifications of that, the social ramifications of that are all super interesting,
Interesting. So you anticipate that the white collar jobs will evaporate?
Yeah, and there'll be a 20-year period where like most jobs are blue collar.
I feel like that is
just purely because it takes.
I don't feel like it's, I don't feel like it's impossible. I just feel like it's very speculative. I feel like cognitive labor evolves, or is probably going to evolve in nature, and so like what we currently think of as cognitive labor is going to change. But I kind of don't really picture it ever going away.
I picture it completely going away.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the theories that I have about how this goes away is kind of interesting too. Of like, I spend a lot of time thinking about theories of transition from where we are now to where we will be, because I think those are where you can find the most insight. specifically, let's say we assume that it does go away. How might we see, like, what are the tells? This is why I'm like wanting to do these talks, because essentially, when building like speculative future theories, the thing that I look for is like, okay, if this is one narrative, what are the indicators, the leading and lagging indicators that I'm in this narrative universe? And for me, one thing is like, as you get closer to all cognitive labor going away, the individual actually gains parity with the firm. So currently, huge firms are much more capable than individuals at creating value at a mass scale. And that, as you see, like cognitive labor decoupling from persons, you should actually see individual persons getting dramatically more competitive. I won't say productive, because that's not the right actual term, because if it was just pure productivity, then big firms would still be king. It's actually that they get more competitive with firms. They're able to do whole marketing departments by themselves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
What was the idea that you had that you told me about last time? You said it was like it's similar to how like oil companies
Yes.
and like and tech companies are very similar, where they're like one person has like a disproportionate
effect on the whole economy.
What do you call it though? I don't remember.
Are you talking about crypto sovereignty?
Yeah.
Because that's
I think you said something crypto. I don't know if it was sovereignty, but yeah.
So this is like the idea of like political structures are downstream of economic structures, right? That the more concentrated the wealth generation tools of a society are, the more concentrated the political generation or the political tools of a society will be. So like Saudi Arabia, 100 people can control all the oil fields in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Therefore, monarchy makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and like in America, like there's no single, at least not currently, like source of wealth generation.
Yeah.
Therefore, the whole political playing field is more even.
Yeah.
But compute actually has dynamics, especially as AI ramps up, that are more similar to oil and less similar to citizen productivity. And so you might see these. There's two possible futures, right? You might see either huge tech people become closer to monarchs, or you might see like a decentralized compute nature wherein the individual citizen has much more sovereignty than ever before, because their economic productivity is almost inseparable from them, you know, especially if you have like very strongly encrypted compute. Where
what was the topic that we originally started with when I first started recording? I don't remember, but
just like the talks and like economic futures, and then we were talking about like Afrofuturism.
Yeah. Wait. Okay. So Afrofuturism was like the idea that that potentially Africa was going to leapfrog and become like a superpower.
Kind of, exactly.
Okay.
It's like it's got the most mineral resources in the world.
Yeah.
It has a whole bunch of oil. It is the last continent to do the demographic transition, so we'll have the biggest population for a while.
But okay, so we brought that up because you were saying that there's like a bunch of different like types of futurism. But why were we talking about the futurism? Because
I'm trying to do these speculative future talks.
Okay.
I want to. One of the ways in which I work is, I think humans are narrative creatures, right? And so if you can fully immerse yourself in a narrative of what the future might be like, you can actually think better about it.
Yeah. Okay. This aligns a lot with something I've been thinking a lot about, which is like the value of teleology.
Yeah.
Like
the end goals, the why.
Yeah. Like I think that it is like categorically just as irrelevant and needed to reason from as if things have purpose, as it is to reason like in a causal deterministic way, just like observing what has happened and trying to extrapolate what can or will happen. Like if you assume that everything has purpose, not because like there is a God, which I think is like sort of like
anachronistic.
No, just because like I think that it makes more sense. It makes more sense. It allows you to make sense of like, and also project your reasoning into the future in a way that you just cannot do with causal determinant reasoning. And it allows you to like.
It allows you to cut possibilities much quicker.
It gives you constraints. Like you can constrain the chaos that normally is present in your perceptions down and like really like simplify the problems if you can reason about things from their purpose. And so I think it's like really important and also like really weird that like in the university system, this is a tangent. We'll come back to it.
No, go for it.
But in the university system, like maybe not system, but like not just system, just like for some reason, like in the intellectual sort of circles, like it has been sort of like poo-pooed, I guess, you know, like or like put down, like people kind of like teleology isn't really that it, or at least like it's not really like equally important in as a way of reasoning, and I feel like that's really weird because to me it seems like it's it might be more speculative, but it is like just as necessary.
Yes, and
despite
extremely
that.
powerful.
Yeah.
It's like, almost like causal deterministic logic is like running a foreign program on your brain, and teleology is like the natural way to run programs on your brain.
I totally agree.
And so it's like you can go a lot farther, a lot faster, and like one of my favorite things to do is sort of like see if I can, like almost to view the world as like wars of teleology. Like, okay, this is going to be a weird one. Crazy weird tangent to explain a concept. Kind of maybe an uncomfortable tangent. But like one of the ways that I think about the world is like it's belief systems warring to make themselves true. And so a good example of this is like racist people believe that black people are dumber than white people. The discrimination that follows from that belief actually causes black people to be more likely put into neighborhoods that have lead pipes, which lead actually does decrease IQ. And so it's a belief that like kind of makes itself true. And it's like I think of the world as like a whole bunch of different beliefs all competing to make themselves true. You know? And in this way, I think of like teleology as the way in which it's like when you believe something, all your actions will now progressively make that world more true, more real. So
I forgot why we brought it up.
The futures, understanding the whys of the futures.
Okay, so you were going to say something about the futures and the whys. But it wasn't related. Was it related to your future talks?
Yeah, somewhat. Not really. Yeah.
I'm glad that you're keeping more track because. Okay, sorry, I'm a little bit spacey today.
You're chilling. You're good chilling.
Continue, please.
So like, I'm thinking one of the things that I'm really curious to investigate is sort of like, I want to drive. I don't think many people in the current moment, partially because we just came out of such an intense moment, and this is maybe another side tangent, but the future I think is going to only continue getting exponentially more intense. So I think like it's very helpful to like, keep that in mind. But I think like lots of people, the combinations of like COVID, Trump's presidency, and sort of just like the intenseness of the past few years has like completely, or that's what I was thinking about. COVID, Trump's presidency, and AI all dropping like sequentially, I think like made people kind of like just completely blank out in terms of this like highly detailed forecasting. And that's what I'm looking to like restart. Is sort of like, Ray Kurzweil, famous futurist, is always like Moore's law, the singularity, all these very specific predictions. And one of the things that I'm trying to figure out is like, okay, I talked to you about crypto sovereignty. What are the tells that we might be trending towards that world? What are the tells that we might be trending towards techno-oligarchy? What are the tells that like neither one of these are correct? What are the tells that solar punk is actually going to happen? All these different types of things. And like in these worlds, what are the demographic shifts? So like one of the subtle ones is like I was talking to you earlier about how we're going to see trades be very valued for like 20 years when the professional managerial class is just getting cut and cut and cut. One of the things that is like a second line effect of that is like political differences are, especially there's a great study about political differences towards the EU. Women who work in like very high paid like professional managerial jobs are very oftentimes very pro-European Union, very liberal, etc. Where like men who work in trades are oftentimes very anti-Euro, very Eurosceptic, very conservative in their leanings. And like currently the economic reality of that is like Europe is more liberal, especially on the economic side. Those people make more money, they have more cultural influence, they are more dominant in society. But as that starts to shift, we might see like very different politics return to Europe in the first time since like our grandparents, and there's like that really intensely dovetails with like this current other trend of like the US having to pull back out of Europe and focus on the Indo-Pacific. And so Europeans are like rearming themselves. And so you might see like the return of continental war, which is like super interesting. And like also not great. You know what I mean? But it's like all these sorts of things you can start to like see how like in different futures you have to like reshift all your probabilities of like what's likely and what's not likely.
Are you familiar with Peter Zeihan?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that reminds me a lot of something that he's been saying. Actually, I love him because I think he's like an original thinker and analyst, and he makes a lot of very interesting like speculations about what things will happen next, and I think a lot of them are well founded.
Yeah.
But also, I kind of don't like him because I think that he is a causal deterministic reasoner. He's entirely looking at the past to try and predict the future.
Yes.
And not necessarily, and so like a lot of his speculations are necessarily kind of like very negative.
Yeah.
And I feel like, okay, so you're familiar with the Malthusian prediction?
Yeah.
Malthusian trap. Okay, so like I listen to this podcast. I really love they put a name on this phenomena where the Malthusian trap is avoided. They call it the Malthusian swerve.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. You swerve around the trap, and they were saying that there's actually a lot of things where like if you look into the future, just like. Taking into
deterministically,
account,
you'll never see it.
There's a lot of stuff where it's like you would assume, and also like could assume in the past that we would like run out of resources, that like bad things would happen just because of how things were trending, and then like and it's been so like constant and reliable that like every time like bad things were going to happen, we noticed at the last second and collectively just like swerved around it, and it happens very reliably, and so. I like Xu Zihan, but also I feel like his reasoning does not take into account like this, this latent potential and the unknown of like we also have potential for good and also like creativity and ways to solve problems that we don't even know about yet.
Yes.
And so, it's like I don't know how you can factor that into your models. I'm not sure if there is a way to do it. I'm sure there probably is, but like
taking my approach, it's like how can I see as many possible futures and as high resolution detail as possible, and then just collect from this high resolution futures like a set of things that will tell me which one I'm in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. That
like
makes
both
sense.
positive and negative futures.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, all of these have indicators. Hopefully my indicators are good choices. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm really excited about like the decentralized economic future of like. What does it look like?
Keep talking.
Go for it. When sort of we as a species can move beyond like these like terribly oppressive ways of like generating value. Like I think about this is like a very dumb one. But if compute is like oil, right? And especially if that holds true for a long time over the future of our society, then we might be able to see like small groups collectively co-fund like a small compute cluster where they all use their own local LLM and then contribute money back into their community as like a self-creating resource, almost like people buying a farm, but the farm is just a stack of computers in someone's house.
I don't know if the analogy holds though, because oil is a high value but also consumable resource, and compute is not really consumable. I mean, like it's consumable in the sense that like there's a finite amount of it, but we can make more of it. We are making more of it, and also like it's reusable in a way that
that oil isn't.
Yeah. So I feel like the analogy might be more like
land.
Yeah, real estate. I was thinking that. Yeah, like or something else that is like.
I mean,
a finite but repurposable,
Yeah. And it's like that. In my mind, if you think of it more like land, it even adds more to like the techno-feudalistic perspective a little bit. Where it's like currently who owns all the compute, who owns all the land?
Yeah.
Some very stubborn lords. But I think it's also one of the things that I'm also looking for a lot, and this is also why I was like looking for leftist people, is. When both sides converge on the same set of ideas, that's when like it seems to indicate to me that something deeper is happening. So a good example of this is techno-feudalism, where both Yanis Varoufakis, the Greek economist, super huge socialist, and Curtis Yarvin, like the super Nazi fascist, are both saying that like tech CEOs are closer to lords than they are to CEOs. And like that's two very different groups of people with diametrically opposed beliefs and ideas, different teleologies and they're all saying like, oh no, this is like a newer political phenomena. So I'm like, oh, there might be something there, but it's very hard to get enough people in the room thinking on the same thing from so many different perspectives. So that's the goal. We'll see whether I can actually make it work.
This is super interesting. Yeah, I am kind of curious why you were focused on these like socioeconomic, or I guess like
big picture.
Yeah, big picture political sort of like thought or like questions.
I think we're about to probably go through a century that will make like the 20th century kind of look like a cakewalk.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so I'm like trying to keep my head in the game.
I think
It's
like everything's accelerating. It's
Yeah.
just gonna keep accelerating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think, are you familiar with Otto von Bismarck? He's the dude who unified Germany. So Otto von Bismarck is
Wait, what time period?
1840s through the early 1900s.
Okay.
That's like roughly the time in which he's active. Well, I shouldn't say the early 1900s. He's already done by the early 1900s, but he predicts World War One, and it happens like almost exactly when he predicts it. He dies like 10 years before it.
Yeah.
So I should say early 1800s till like late 1800s. Before then, Germany was just a whole bunch of small countries, all loosely agglomerated. Like it's post Holy Roman Empire, but pre Germany.
Yeah.
Germany,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
He invented a whole type of like way of thinking about politics called Realpolitik, and it's something that like has deeply influenced the way in which I think. He's a super huge conservative, like extremely super huge conservative, but he was super great at just looking at the world and predicting how it's going to play out via understanding like the motivations and like the struggles and the constraints of everyone around him. The funny thing that I feel like is not talked about enough, and part of the reason why I'm so interested in these things, is because I feel like there's actually like a huge theory opportunity here, which academia is not on, and like, this is a quick tangent. In 2 minutes after I finish this rant, I have a whole nother rant about a big picture trend that I see for the 21st century.
I'm here for it. Yeah.
Okay. But I think tech companies in the modern day are geopolitical actors in the same way that states are. All of political theory is not meant for the new world in which we live in. It's meant to analyze states, not to analyze states competing against multinational companies, competing against, it's a multi-pronged, multi-entity type proxy war across several continents right now. And it's like very interesting. The other thing that I was going to say is that knowledge is, or I shouldn't say knowledge, alpha, so frontier knowledge, is going to be less accessible over the course of this century, is my guess.
Hold on. Alpha. Define
Yes.
alpha.
Let's say you have a secret that Tim Cook just got poisoned. That knowledge is alpha. It is unique knowledge that the market does not yet know.
I see.
That is very valuable to have, but you cannot derive it from anything else. You just have to know it.
Yeah.
Sort of like the laws of physics. Like the first person to crack like the equation to make an atom bomb, that was alpha until someone else cracked it.
Market relevant secrets.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And not necessarily market relevant. Like in the origin of the term, yes, but when I use it, I mean it more generally.
Okay. Just like relevant secrets.
Exactly.
Okay.
Very, very relevant
Yeah.
secrets.
Powerful, unknown knowledge.
Exactly.
Or, yeah. Okay.
And like the trend line of the 20th century was that alpha was more and more accessible. And up until probably like the mid 2020s, it will still be that trend line, but I think that's going to reverse really intensely.
Wait, when you say alpha was accessible, what do you mean? Like, you mean there were a lot of people who had relevant secrets?
No, it was like people were just giving out their secrets for free. Like a good example of this is like research papers. Completely. Yeah.
What you mean, like the open
knowledge,
knowledge
yeah,
plan
exactly.
of science?
Yeah,
Like,
of science and of like just everything was like everyone was wanting to give you as much free knowledge as you could possibly take.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we're about to see a really intense reversal of that over the next 20 years.
Whoa, say more about that.
Everything, we're moving into a more competitive landscape, and as landscapes get more competitive, people start to hide their competitive advantage more and more because it becomes more and more valuable. On top of that, I also think that academia, specifically economically valuable academic things, there's like this perverse incentive at the heart of certain types of academic studies. So a classic example of this is economics. If you study economics in school, by definition, you're studying not the smartest economist. So if you think about people in the same ways that people think about AI, so like the term I'm going to use here are instrumental goals, Instrumental goals are goals that you have not because you want the thing, but because they'll help you get something else. And then the convergent instrumental goal of most agents is money, because regardless of what you're doing, money will help you do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so for most agents with most goals, regardless of their teleology, it is almost always a guarantee that they will try and accumulate money. So when I am using this, I am talking about people, and people are not necessarily rational agents, but in aggregate, they oftentimes act like it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you take rational agents and you throw them into the current world, specifically studying economics, rational agents will choose not to go into academia because you make much more as a trader. Someone who works at Citibank, someone who works in big finance, someone who works in VC or at a hedge fund. And
The best economists are not in academia.
No, the best economists are trading stocks, or
Fair.
like trading bonds, or like currencies.
Probably not giving their knowledge away for free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Specifically hiding their knowledge so that they can maintain their edge. In
Yeah.
fact, when you have a very good trading strategy, you have to keep it secret for as long as possible, because as soon as it's common, you lose all of your edge.
Yeah.
And so one of the very weird things about economists is that like the public understanding of economics is like delayed by like 5 to 10 years of the private secret understanding of economics. A good example of this is cryptocurrency, but we're not going to talk about that right now because that's a whole long conversation.
Yeah.
And so there's like this really perverse incentive in any academic field that becomes economically valuable. You're seeing this with AI right now, where 10, 15 years ago, you would still see competitive AI papers coming out of research universities. Every single competitive AI paper that has come out in like the past like 2-3 years, it's all companies.
Yeah.
And it's like, as that race heats up, it's like OpenAI is already doing this. They don't release system cards anymore for their newest models. They release just the top of the line metrics and nothing else.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like DeepSeek is currently releasing papers, but as they get more and more competitive, you can expect all of their insights to slowly get locked up.
Yeah.
And so like, I think one of the major trends that we're going to see over the like course of the 21st century is like this actually retreat of knowledge, where people with knowledge are going to try and guard it and keep it a secret much more.
Yeah, I mean, like definitely. Okay, so I have friends who work at K-Scale, and they were telling me like, okay, so like all the big robotics platforms are completely private.
Yep.
And so like every big company that's trying to make like a self-driving car is literally
Reinventing the wheel.
reinventing the wheel, creating their own data sets to train with, and also their own hardware, and doing everything independently because like everyone's trying to be the first across the line.
Yep.
So it's like a developmental arms race.
Yes.
And yeah, but
All secrets are closely guarded.
I don't know though if the alpha was necessarily like more free before, because like
I think it was.
it was just wasn't in these fields, right?
Well, no, I think even still, like if you go back 5-10 years, like the top economists were putting out research papers still. A good example of this, Barclays, which is a hedge fund, and just big finance company in general. They're like a bank, and they have a whole bunch of different things, but they put out research papers occasionally on trading strategies that they use. And it's like, that is something that I think is going to go away. I guess the other thing that makes me think that knowledge is going to be scarce is I think people are going to move to locally hosted, encrypted LLMs fairly soon. At least anyone who's doing anything of merit, because there's been so many stories recently of people being like, oh shit, ChatGPT like is sucking information and like sending it off to OpenAI, and it's like that's actually a weirdly scary thing to think about, like, oh, like this conversation that I'm having right now is going to be trained on, And so like,
Wait, I thought that was like specifically part of the thing that they were promising, is that they weren't going to do that.
they so do. There's like so much on this.
Okay, all right.
So like,
That's going to change the way I interact with ChatGPT.
right?
Yeah.
It's so intense. So I think like plenty of people, I think, yeah.
They
people are
did
just
promise
gonna
that they wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
though.
yeah, yeah.
And but they're
OpenAI promised a lot.
Okay, all right,
you
all
know, they promised that they were going to open source their models.
Yeah.
You know, so
wait, okay, so the alpha is going to become
Much
less
more hidden.
less
Yeah.
available. It's going to start to become like industry specific, sort of like arms races. And wait, so do you anticipate that we're going to be moving into sort of like it's like there'll be technologies developed that will be like super groundbreaking, but also like super controlled by like small groups of people. So we'll like have like sort of techno feudalism, sort of like.
I mean, that's a possible future, right? I think another possible future is sort of like commercialization of these technologies will be tightly controlled, and after a certain point, then it will become democratized. Sort of the best way to think about this is like CIA docs. Like CIA docs are classified for like 50 years and then they get, unleashed. And it's like. That's like one model right there is like in the crypto world, this is actually super common where things transition from a BUSL license, which is business license, but in the license it has an expiry date in which it transitions to a copyleft license after a certain date. And I think like we'll see a lot of technologies like that.
Interesting. Copyleft has always like been a little bit funny to me because like when I first learned about it, I was super into like free and open source stuff. And then after a while, I learned that like there's kind of no business incentive for it, and a lot of time it can actually just muddy the waters and make things harder to deal with. And so like if your intention is to make money, then often like there's literally no incentive to do open source or copyleft anything. And actually can just like make it harder to do to accomplish your goals. And so like there's a lot of like, I don't know. I used to be like very pro like philanthropic like software and like ideologies, and now I'm kind of like less sold on it because I feel like it the ideology gets in the way of progress. Like people really want these ideas to be good, but like usually like the downstream effects of the technology just being really well funded because the company is not copyleft and not worrying about philanthropy is actually better in the long run than it is for like a company to like try and do something that is good for the world up front, and usually it just like slows their progress.
I think this was the intention behind the BUSL license. Like Uniswap, it's a decentralized crypto exchange. So it's one of the biggest exchanges. Like it even rivals like centralized exchanges these days. And so it allows you to trade any two cryptocurrencies for another on the same chain. So you like currently, I don't think you can do cross-chain swaps on Uniswap. But like you can trade ETH for like wrapped Bitcoin or ETH for Doge, or it doesn't really matter. And it's completely. Every time they version it, the old version becomes completely open source, and then the new version is like their actual business one, where they still take fees on it and everything. And this is something that like I didn't. So earlier we were talking about crypto sovereignty, and when I first thought about crypto sovereignty, I didn't have an idea of how it would play out. But crypto sovereignty really dovetails quite well with what I call the protocol economy. So we've talked about the like dominant insurance contracts and all this. That's like 400 lines of code, and like.
Did you get yours running?
Yeah. I have it completely running, and I'm trying to decide, okay, what's the best way to like actually turn this into a real thing. But it's like, okay, I sat down, had an idea, turned it into a protocol, and if the protocol blows up and I take like a 0.1% fee on every time someone uses the protocol, it's like an individual just made a whole funding platform without any help. Just like pure code, and then it's like as long as people use it, like that could literally be hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for me. And the government can't take it because it's literally a crypto wallet. And so it's like I have the keys, just fucking burn them and like just memorize my keys. And it's like, wow, that's what I'm talking about in terms of crypto sovereignty. The compute resource that is Ethereum now has like created an economic business for me that like is completely confiscatable. And like this is like a perfect example of like the protocol economy, people creating protocols for human action, and if they're good at it, then those protocols become like a whole new layer, and also like unconfiscatable revenue, which is kind of interesting to me. So that's like an actual clear example of what I'm talking about when I talk about like crypto sovereignty, compute is oil, etc.
I love it.
Sorry to ramble for so long.
No, it's really good. It's really good. I'm glad we're recording this. This is good shit.
I'm really hoping that these ideas become more common, but I'm also like I'm a little funny because I'm like, do I want to keep this alpha?
That's okay. That's something that I've been thinking a lot about. Like, okay, so there's like. Actually, I was talking with ChatGPT about this the other day. I'm trying to write a book, right? And I've worked out a bunch of stuff that I feel like represents alpha, but I think like the key is to release the core,
Mhm.
but not the implementation.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So like tell people about the ideas, but if you want to actually,
Live.
if you want to live, then reserve like the actual details of how it's implemented.
Mhm.
Like a few industrious types might be able to
Yeah,
work that
yeah,
out, but usually most people are not going to put in the extra work to do that.
Yeah.
And so like you've already like created a moat.
Yeah,
Because like you've shown that you've done the work, that you have fresh and original
Mm-hmm.
ideas, but you haven't like actually done like the most relevant part, which is to show
Mhm.
people how to use it.
Yes.
And so you keep that for yourself.
Yeah. That makes sense. I'm curious also to see, one of the things that it feels very intensely is like that people forgot the game. I'm not sure I lost the game. I feel like people.
That game.
Yeah.
I forgot about
yeah,
that as well.
yeah. But like people don't really have their heads in the game of like society much right now. Like the clearest example of this to me right now is like geopolitics. This is like super hard to say without seeming super controversial, so I'm going to try and tread lightly here.
Oh, good.
You know you're at the end of a great cycle when people are advocating against their own self-interest without knowing that they're doing that.
Give an example.
Classic example is Americans who want to unwind American empire, but don't understand the intense drop in living standards that will cause. That means that the thing has gotten so complex that the average person who has an influence over it doesn't actually have an understanding of it.
Yeah.
So the classic example of this is the US dollar is the global reserve currency.
Yeah.
So one of the things that people fail to recognize is that US dollar inflation is a tax on the whole world.
Yeah.
So when the Federal Reserve prints more money to make the economy better, yes, we feel that. But do you know who also feels that?
Everyone else.
Exactly. Rice farmers in India trying to sell rice to China,
Yeah.
who trade in US dollars, and we don't even like think about that. So like we obviously tax Americans, but we like globally tax the whole world using inflation.
Yeah.
And so if we were to unwind empire, most Americans now have to deal with a crazy spike in inflation that they've never ever seen before.
Yeah.
And it's like that's gonna hurt so many people, but like the whole global system of like the U.S. empire and how it actually works is so complex that the average person who is influencing it, the average voter, has no conception of what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, versus like if you're just like an average country, it's like much easier to follow. You know, so
I really like this. Okay, so I guess follow-up question. This is relevant, I guess, for you and me, which is like, so you sound like you are a thinker and an analyst, and you're good at it. But okay, and I've had this conversation a little bit with Clovis as well, which is that Clovis is also like really interested in all this stuff. He wants to like create a company like writing white papers. I don't really know what that means, or at least how that's monetizable. But like, do you want to also like be like a full-time thinker slash?
No, I'm much more interested in creating effects on the real world.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
direct effects on the real world. Direct, controlled by me effects on the real world.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit too much of a control freak.
Okay.
So you already know about manifestation markets, the dominant insurance contracts, gamified crowdfunding.
Yeah.
I hope to make money off of that.
Yeah.
I also hope that the goal of my thinking is to gain a better model of the world that is also useful for me influencing the world into the future that I wanted to go to. You know, I have my own personal teleology of why I do everything, right? So personally, I think that why I am like doing all these talks and stuff. One, I think it will increase the spread of my thoughts and also the clout that my thoughts have. But two, I'm also just really wanting more people to be thinking and talking at this level of like the mixture of geopolitics, economics, and technology, and like how these all intersect with like philosophy and like personal belief systems, you know, to move the world forward. I'm like, if more people were talking about that, like I just, there's not enough content that I can like eat where I'm like, oh, this content actually like expanded my whole field of view, you know? A thing that I've been thinking a lot about recently is this thing that I call like the focal point of a person's knowledge. So you have broad knowledge, you know, I know lots of different things. You have deep knowledge, I know something very, very well.
Yeah.
And then the focal point is how far back can you see all of your knowledge at once and get it to interact with itself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's like I'm looking for things with bigger or farther and farther away focal points where
Yeah.
more knowledge is acting upon itself.
Personally, or in community, or
In everything.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Okay.
for myself, I'm trying to like get my focal point farther back. The people I talk to, I want them to have farther back focal points. Those are the types of conversations that I'm looking for.
agreed. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. This makes me think that I should also sit down with Clovis sometime and record a podcast.
Yes. Clovis is great.
Clovis is fucking great. Clovis is like he's a little bit of a mad genius.
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't realize that when I first met him. I thought he was just like a really cool guy. But the more I've known him, the more I realized like, oh fuck, like Clovis is like a force to be reckoned
Yes.
with. He's
Yes.
like a very like motivated, smart, extremely talented,
Very
at,
charismatic.
like everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's just like he's gonna do whatever he does. I don't know what he's doing, but like whatever he does, it's gonna be like really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to hear his thoughts on like the first talk that me and Clovis are gonna have, because we're gonna touch on so many different things. There's like this, I think we were talking about it last time, like Chartalism and like theories of money, and like what does money look like in a post-labor economy? Can you blockchains as ways to create mathematizable value systems? that
Okay. Well,
aren't-
first, what's a post-labor economy? Because I don't
Yeah.
know if I think that can exist.
Yeah. So there's this really interesting thing to me. So the Unitree robots right now, they're $1,600 a pop for one of those like little dogs.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
For the dogs. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super cheap.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
cheap.
Yeah. Not the humanoid.
No. But you can attach like a limb to the front of the dog, and get it to like grab stuff. So people are sleeping on how useful the dogs are going to be, in my opinion.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But the thing that is fascinating to me, let me take a very small example of a post-labor economy. I'm going to take a single co-op and make it 90% post-labor. I can't get 100% post-labor. No one can right now. But even just with today's technology, there's this house called Moonstone House in the UK. It produces more electricity than it uses, and it's in Cornwall, England. So it's not that sunny there. It's a very expensive house to build, but it's very much worth it. So, house that produces more electricity than it uses, throw it on 100 acres,
Yep.
get 10 dogs,
Yep.
have each of those 100 acres, for context, it takes about 2 acres to feed a single person.
Yeah.
You can keep most of the environment natural and do like permacultural food forest and still get industrial agricultural yields using dogs as the harvesting robots, or so that you don't actually have to like do road-based agriculture.
Okay.
Like you don't have to plant everything like this. You can actually do a forest.
All right. I think you might be leapfrogging some steps there, but okay. Like, let's assume it's possible. Then what?
Yeah. Then it's like you have this house that like produces more electricity than it uses, and if you place it in the right area, like let's say Upper Peninsula, Michigan,
Yeah.
where I'm thinking about this kind of a lot,
Yeah.
you have groundwater, so you don't need to worry about water purification or any of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so you have water, you have food, you have housing.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't have clothes yet.
Yeah.
That's like part of the thing that I can't do. Clothes take so much resources.
Yeah.
So many ridiculous amounts of resources. But it's like just based off that, you can get like almost the bottom of the pyramid knocked out.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I mean, okay, like subsistence.
Mhm.
I feel like is a really world. The problem isn't necessarily that you can't get to a place where everyone has what they need to live.
Yeah.
I think that the problem is different in that, like, I think there's this tension between like sort of capitalistic and
Yes.
communistic
Yes,
modes of
viewpoints.
thought. Where like I think capitalism sort of like represents the urge to sort of like have a better life, and communism represents the urge to have a good life. And better and good are at odds with each other
Yeah.
because like better means you have to change what currently is, and good just means like you know
Improving marginally. Yeah.
No, I don't even think improvement. Just like situating yourself so you are having the best of what is currently available,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Oh, that's a good way to think about that. Yeah, it's not about like changing things. It's about
Yeah.
like moving inside of the thing that already exists.
exactly. So these two things sort of like exist at odds with each other because like absolutely there is enough resources for everyone to
Yes.
I think have a good life.
Yeah.
But the problem is that like with the way things currently are, to have a better life, you need to situate it such that some people are sucking up way more resources than other
Yes.
via ownership.
Yeah,
Ownership
yeah,
is the
yeah.
problem, and it's like, so as long as we have like a system in which ownership is a fundamental part,
Yeah.
you'll never have a system where like people can actually like
Just live.
just live. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like not without like shenanigans.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
you can do it. I think there are a lot of people who currently do it.
I think-
and like there are also ways I think to sort of like gamify the system to where you have enough cash flow to live in perpetuity as an individual.
Yes.
But I think often what that, well, I don't actually want to say, but like, but yeah, so it's like subsistence is an achievable goal, just not in a world in which we want to own
Commoditize
things.
everything. Yeah.
Commoditize and also like have better things.
Yeah.
And so I think like you can actually choose a world in which you can subsist, but it won't be a very good, like it will be good
Yes.
in the natural sense.
Yes.
Like you will have free time.
Yes.
You'll have like the ability to like access nature and food and nutrition and
Yes.
like community, but you won't have like,
The latest iPhone.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, you won't be able to have those things. Do not coexist.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think like it already exists. If you're
Somewhat.
interested in just subsisting,
Yes.
like there's so many ways of doing it.
I don't disagree with that. I think we're on track to have regions of subsistence at like high levels of first world's quality. And I think like that's actually the like really stark shift is like when you can subsist at like San Francisco making 100K a year levels of life quality versus subsist at like subsistence farming level of quality. I think it's like qualitatively different on top of like what's the word? I think it also causes some weird trickle effects.
Actually, okay, like I think that this is like a fundamental problem with that. I had this conversation a little bit with Clovis, which is that like I went to one of his talks and he was like, "What does a post-labor economy look like?" And I'm like, I don't actually think that can exist because literally like what it means to do labor is going to shift. It's like it's a thing that exists on the horizon, and the closer you get to it, like it always stays the same distance away. Like so, it's like you might have thought like living 200 years ago that living in modern America as a person who lives in poverty would be like amazing, right? Because you would have like air conditioning, you have a microwave, refrigerator, you'd have
so cheap.
you would have like you might still work all the time, but you would do so in conditions that were so much better than they were 200 years ago. You might have thought you'd be happy with that, but now most people who live in poverty in America are not happy with that. And it's like it's kind of like this whole thing, you know, Adlerian psychology, courage to be disliked. Like trauma is massively dictated by your personal experience. It's relative, right? And it's like I think there are people right now in I don't know if third world is an acceptable term, but like in
Global
very
South.
poor countries that would be very happy to live as
a lower class person in America.
But the lower class people in America are not happy with that.
Yes.
And I think it's because it's like it's a sliding scale. It's it's like anytime you achieve the better thing, there's always going to be something better than it. You're always going to be dissatisfied, and there's never like so like I think that is true in a whatever the post-labor economy looks like is literally just going to look like this thing happening more and more. People are always going to like have better things and still be unsatisfied because there's going to be better things than the things that they have.
I think somewhat. I think part of it, and this is like deep communist theory, is like induced desire and commodity fetishism. How do I explain this? Okay, this is an extreme counterfactual, so it's maybe not useful.
Okay.
But the counterfactual here is like monks, people who purposely choose to have less and are oftentimes report higher fulfillment. I think what this indicates is like some extent of this is truly deeply psychological of like the society you're raised in determining how much this actually matters, you know? And I think what my prediction for the future is that you see like great balkanization of society. I think I've talked to you about this before, where there'll be like several parallel societies all operating on top of society, and people will like kind of self-select into the one that fits their internal value system the most.
That feels right.
You know?
Snow crash.
Yeah.
That's what happens to snow crash, right? Is it like the greater America fractures into like thousands of tiny countries.
Yes.
And they're all like even like on like a one block plot of land, it's their own country, right?
Yeah. My vision is that it doesn't fracture into true countries, but it's sort of like overlay countries. if that makes any sort of sense. That you could imagine like, yeah, I'm super obsessed with this concept. This is like a huge thing that I'm working on in the background. But like, let's say I ran a nonprofit and this thing was owned by a nonprofit, right? Like this specific floor, right? And that nonprofit actually has like a federated membership thing with hundreds of nonprofits across the world, such that if you're a part of one, you're a part of all of them. And you can like, no matter where you are in the world, you look up, oh, what does my state own in this part of the world? And like inside of this building, you're not worrying about police. Like literally there could be a whole bunch of like meth right there, and like cops would never know and they wouldn't care. Like private property is like, this is the thing. You can do this on top of capitalism. You can't really do this on top of communism.
Yeah.
Because of private property rights, it allows for this kind of weird overlay society. You know, a great example of this is like secret societies, like Freemasons. Like in a Freemasons lodge, they're more dictated by the rules of Freemasonry than they are by the rules of whatever country they're currently operating in. You know, and so like I can imagine like thousands of different like overlay societies popping up like this, and people like accidentally finding themselves in these sorts of arrangements.
Wait, I was going to say something, I forgot what it was. It was, oh yeah, okay, so I have a relevant thing that I've been talking about recently. You know the concept of negativity bias? Okay, so I actually think that negativity bias is not, it's real, but not all the time. I think that it's a conditionally true thing. Okay, so this comes back to Alfred Adler. Like your trauma is partially chosen. Like you sort of choose. It's a part of your perspective, right? And you can choose your perspective. So how do I normally talk about this? I had this crazy experience a few years ago when I was in this crazy situation. Like my car wouldn't start. It was in a place where I couldn't leave it, and it was going to get towed, and I was very stressed about it. And then something happened, and eventually my perspective about the situation shifted, and I started to, instead of being like very stressed about it, I started to think it was kind of fun. And the reason I think, and then since then I realized that like I think that there is like a spectrum of perspective. I call it hard versus easy mode. You know, like in a video game, like you have easy mode, you also have like hard mode, and like imagine like you have the same, like you have the ability to play at hard mode, but you choose easy mode because you want it to be easy. Versus like hard mode, you want to be challenged. And like I think that's a real thing in life. A lot of people have this where life isn't good unless it's easy, or life isn't good unless it's hard, right? And like I think everyone like has different parts of their life where they want to be challenged. But like I think about the Marines, especially like it's like a class of people who have categorically chosen something that is like extremely difficult. On
definitively
purpose.
Hard mode.
Definitively hard mode, and they love it. They love it, right? It's like for them, it's like peak existence. And like I've always like wondered, like why would anyone choose to be a Marine? And now I think I get it. Like it's like I think there's an element where I actually don't know exactly how this relates, but I do think it's related. That like you want to compare yourself to yourself, not other people. People say that like comparison is the thief of joy, and I've always said that that's really stupid because obviously like you need to be able to compare things in order to perceive it. It's like a fundamental part of your perception.
That is how we work.
So like comparison is the thief of joy. Thinking life is fair is the thief of joy, right? And there is
that's actually so true. That's fascinating. Yeah, thinking that there's like a should like
there like there might be better. It might be definitively better, but there definitely isn't like a way that like life should be for you. It's not like we all get a guaranteed this particular experience, right? And you have to like if you compare yourself to yourself, not other people, what it allows you to do is like sort of isolate yourself from all of that bullshit. And there might be like more layers on top of that, but like I guess my point is that I don't think that negativity bias is necessarily a thing that like
is like categorically true.
It's not it's a part of your perspective. It's like if you're in easy mode, you want an easy life, then you're much more likely to have negativity bias. And if you're not in easy mode, if you want a challenging situation, if you want to learn and grow, you want to like be better than you were yesterday, then the relative discomfort or the relative like ups and downs matter a lot less. Like the probability that you'll perceive like
a challenging situation as challenging.
Or like as a definitive negative. Is like it might be, but I don't think it's like I'm not sure what the difference is, but I'm not sure that you would necessarily like the classic experiment is like I give you $10 versus take $10. You know, it's like like if your goal is not to have more money than you did, but like be a stronger, better version of yourself, like
Yeah.
that experience of losing $10
Yeah.
might not
more
be
valuable.
more.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be. It might be negative, but not as or more negative than
Exactly.
the equal positive, right?
Yeah.
Which is like the whole point of negativity bias.
Yeah.
And like so, I don't know. I haven't necessarily worked it all the way out, but
No, but I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're saying like it's almost like it's a side effect of the current frame that you're using, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like almost. Have I talked to you about how I view morals? This is morals and teleology and memes all have formed into like one concept in my brain.
I don't know.
Okay, so memes, ideas that are organisms in and of themselves, right? I think you know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Memes infect humans. Memes have goals, evolutionarily speaking, in a sense. Like they want to persist. That is part of. That is an
propagate.
exactly.
Yeah.
That is an instrumental goal.
A mind virus, literally.
Literally,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And so you can think of memes of having certain complex goals, especially the more complex the meme, the more complex its goals may be.
Well, what's a complex meme?
Christianity is a complex meme, right?
okay.
It's not like a single belief.
It's like a system. I see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a system.
Collection of memes, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Memeplex
Yeah.
is what Dawkins uses for this term. I like the word memetic organism.
Okay.
If a meme is a gene, several memes can come together to form a memome, a genome, which exist inside of a memetic organism.
That's funny. I like that. That's
You
funny.
know? So Christianity, Islam, the United States, all very complex memes
Yeah.
that have all very complex desires to replicate, in a sense, But these are all ideas. How does that actually work mechanistically? I think the best way to think about it is that if you view morality as a function that takes in a world state, so a description of the world, and then outputs a ranking of said world state. So you have your most preferred world state and you have your least preferred world state, heaven and hell, and then everything falls along the spectrum of heavenness or hellness. You know what I mean? So if I say tomorrow the U.S. gets invaded by China versus tomorrow the U.S. invades China, you have different relative preferences for those world states. And the world state preference ranking actually encodes all of your morals. Like you would prefer worlds that have less child murder over worlds that have more child murder. All statements about morality can be defined as ranking preferences of world states. Does that make sense?
Right.
So memes have moral systems, which essentially are just weighted rankings of world states, which influence your actions. Like if you feel this certain way towards this set of world states, you're more likely to do these actions, which more highly correlate with this meme spread.
Fair.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And in this sense, like you can think of like negativity bias as like a form of a meme, like cattle prodding people psychologically.
Why is negativity bias in me?
It's not like a meme in itself. It's something that like memes do.
Oh.
Does that make sense? Like it's like it prods people away from things that memes don't like them to do much more intensely than it like pulls them towards things that memes do want them to do.
I don't actually. Hold on. Okay. The previous sentence, you said. Sorry.
You're good. So I can give you Christianity as a very clear example.
Sure.
Christianity, in emotion, oftentimes is way more about what not to do than what to do.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, there is some amount of, some people will go be missionaries, but like, I think part of the thing is Christianity is a very, very highly sophisticated meme. I think it knows most people won't go be missionaries.
Yeah.
And so it's more strategic to get most people to stay Christian instead of to create new Christians.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean there?
Yeah.
And so it's like, in a way, like it ranks the morality of not leaving the faith and it pushes that much more strongly than creating new faithful members.
Yeah, fair.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's like an example of like negativity bias being used to like help memetic spread.
Yeah. I like this.
This is a frame that I use a lot in my brain. Is like how can I think of memes, morals, and teleology as all one thing? So like the teleological approach to this is
morality probably is a meme, right?
I don't think of it in itself as a meme. I think of it as like,
or at least I guess there's different moral systems.
Yeah,
right?
I think of moral systems as memes.
Okay,
That's actually the moral systems are like viruses that are trying to affect how you rank world states.
Where's the overlap teleology with the morality? And
Yes.
memes?
So I think the way to best view this is almost all moral suppositions are framed teleologically. Why should you be a Christian? So you can get into heaven.
Yeah.
Like what? So most moral systems work teleologically, kind of like this, where they suppose a heaven state and say the reason you're doing everything is to wind up at this heaven state. So like that can be heaven. For Jewish people, it's this concept called tikkun olam. They don't believe in the past life; they believe in the world to come, a perfect future world. For tech people, it's space civilization. It's like spacefaring, aliens, and all that. For communists, it's like the revolution. Like regardless of meme, they actually almost all have a heaven state, and they teleologically explain the moral system as a way to get to said heaven state. Does that make sense?
I suppose, but I might be using the word teleology differently than you.
It's a set of whys.
Well, okay, hear me out though, because in my mind, and this might be my own extrapolation.
Yeah.
But I think that teleology is actually formally teleology is like reasoning about things from its purpose.
Yes.
But I think what it is beyond that is actually specifically like a way of reasoning about things in the future versus the past. Like causal deterministic reasoning is like past focused.
Yes.
It's like you're looking backwards.
Yes.
And therefore also like focused on like the set of like sort of like. Okay, so I don't want to get too deep, but I have this like dichotomy in my brain between like maximizing gain and minimizing loss.
Yes.
And I think that like, causal deterministic reasoning is a way of minimizing loss because it's concrete. You're looking at something that has happened, it's happened. Versus like teleology is more speculative. You're thinking about things in the future. You're reasoning about things from their purpose. You're not 100% sure if the purpose that you like impose is
true.
Yes. But it also allows you to make sense of the future in ways that like you can't with causal determinist reasoning, and it allows you. It's necessarily more like creative, aspirational, like generative, and like kind of just better for you.
I mean, somewhat. I think it's more.
I think they're like
intoxicating. That's the word that I would use.
I think there is latent potential in the unknown that you can't access.
Yes.
And also, I think that there is more positive potential in the unknown than there is negative potential in the known as a general rule at any time. So, like, when you turn your attention to the latent potential in the unknown, you...
you're opening up a space for more positive possibilities.
Yeah. And so while, like, I think it's, like, it's easy to fall into this sort of, like, way of thinking where you think that they are equal. I don't think that they're equal. I think teleology is better in like in a way that it takes faith to believe, but it's also like I think it is better. I think like it's like you're always going to be better off, and also your reasoning, your way of approaching reality is going to be like subtly and indefinably better.
Yes.
And
I completely agree. This is what I'm saying though, is that like I think the way memes and morals work is they work teleologically. So a great way to think about this is one of the ways in which, like you're talking about, like the generative potential of thinking from the future and then like almost retrocausally causing the future.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's how like memes work. It's like if you're a communist, you want the revolution to happen. The revolution is this like future state which you're imagining, and you're looking at all of your actions not from the past currently looking forward, but from the future looking into the past that is now. And then trying to construct the bridge from the now to the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like for communists, it's the revolution. For Christians, it's getting into heaven. For leftists, or not for leftists, sorry, for spacefarers, it's like getting to Mars. And it's all about like, you have your eye on this prize in the future, and in fact, you don't even really have your eye. Like if you're really good at it, you don't have your eye on this prize in the future. You're in the future, looking at the now, trying to pull yourself into here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. There's so many angles of this, like manifesting, like manifesting, the law of attraction. I think like manifesting is real because there are eventualities that can't exist unless your attention is on them, right?
Yes.
And that's like, so it's real. I don't like the spiritualism. I hate spiritualism, honestly. Like it clouds and like obfuscates all the good things that might be associated with any sort of spiritualism, but manifesting is real. There are 100% are things like, but it's real also in a positive and negative sense. Like if you're focused on a negative potentiality that you want to prevent,
Yeah.
you might actually cause it to happen
Yes.
because you're focused on it. And likewise, if you're focused on a positive eventuality that doesn't exist yet, as long as it is possible,
Yeah.
you could actually cause it to exist
Yes,
by
you can-
focusing on it.
yes,
Yeah,
you can move
And-
closer and closer towards it.
Yes. And so it's like, I don't know where I was going with that. But
No, I get you. It's like you're looking into the space of latent possibility and
Yeah.
like trying to pull certain uncommon ones into the now. Yes.
yeah.
But I think of all of these things like morality, memetics, and like teleology as like all like kind of the same thing. It's like in a very like heady like fiction sense. You can think of it as like futures as beings that are trying to pull you towards them. You know, and it's like the ways in which they do so are like via convincing you that their future is better than others, and also subtly convincing you that all the steps to get to their future is like the best thing to do. You know, like I think about like EA people all the time in this. So much is smuggled into the belief system without them actively saying it.
Are these stars up for grabs?
Yeah, go for it.
I'd love to have some of these almonds. Yeah, EA folks are great.
Yeah.
I really like the EA community, even though I feel like there's a lot of like, okay, this is actually like the analogy that I would use. I feel like evolutionary thinkers obviously, or not obviously, often make this sort of blunder where they're like, okay, so like evolution is real, which I think it is.
Yeah.
And then so they're like, hey, if we reason about things from its evolutionary like purpose and or like its history or whatever, then like you arrive at certain conclusions. And I think that there was like a lot of really toxic thinking that happened in the 20th century because of that. Like eugenics, I think was like an evolutionary way of thinking, and like a lot of it's weird because like it's like pro technology, but sort of like anti fundamental humanism stuff was a product of evolutionary thinking. And I think there's like a similar sort of issue in like the EA in the circles, because they're trying to do things that are like quote good for people, but they're using they're like logicking them their way out of like empathy and kindness, and they don't even like see the trap. And I've always thought like I feel like there's a parallel there where like the evolutionary thinkers were like reasoning about something that I think is real. Like evolutionary thinking is real. But it's not
also,
all of the story.
Yeah, exactly. They're missing a lot of it. Like there's this common thing called the spandrel fallacy, actually. So let's say you have a square room and you're building a dome. On top of it, there's this part that kind of looks like a triangle that is like a logical necessity, and it's called a spandrel. It's like in medieval architecture, they used to put really nice frescoes and motifs on the spandrels. And the explanation of the spandrel fallacy goes, it's a critique of evolutionary thinking that to believe that spandrels were necessary because people wanted to put frescoes on them. You know, when it's like, it's like the use of the thing and like the reason it's there can like be completely unrelated. You know, and so it's like there's so much. This is like I think a common fallacy of like just hyper like thinky people. I'm not sure hyper intellectual. That's the word I was looking for. People is to lean on one frame or one epistemology to an extent that like drowns out all the others. And it's like you actually have to like
self undermines.
Exactly. It's like all of these things you could kind of look at it in like a quantum mechanics kind of way, where it's like they're all like different probability distributions that kind of describe the future, and you get like the best model when you like impose them upon each other and create like this superposition of all the different ways in which you could view a thing, you know, which is very hard to do. It's very like, because oftentimes you'll hold contradictory opinions about why the same thing happened, but it's like much more accurate of like, oh, I don't actually know which one of these epistemologies is like the most accurate here, but like if they're pointing to the same thing, then underlying there must be like some accuracy. You know, it's like if both evolutionary thinking and like bottom-up thinking and teleological thinking all come to roughly the same conclusion, probably a good conclusion, you know? That's kind of my perspective on that, but maybe it's weird.
No, it's good. I think, like, I think that there might be a fundamental like sort of law of the universe where like you have a spectrum of perspective. You need both sides. You can't just have one side. I don't think it's like really possible. Like often you might want to spend more time on one side than the other.
One side may grant you like better effectiveness, but the other's description of what you're actually doing might be much better at detecting like second-tier side effects.
Yeah, I think somebody said this to me the other day. Like the yin and yang symbol is like a really good illustration of that. Like where you have like the opposites, but they both have like a kernel of the other.
Yes.
And I think that is like a brilliant symbol.
Yeah, the best way to go for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Grazie.
Yeah, good talk.
It was amazing.
I'm gonna stop my recording now. An hour